Hey, what's going on YouTube? My name is JB. Welcome back or welcome to the All Things Mechanical YouTube channel, where today we have my son's 2005 Toyota Camry in here. This is a very reliable car for him. He's driven it all over the country, but as you can see, the headlights have seen better days. These are actually the original OEM headlights. This car has 202,000 miles on it, and we actually bought this from one of my wife's co-workers, and this was her grandma's car. This is basically a one-owner car. It has been very, very well maintained. The problem is these headlights are very, very fogged, and the clear coat on them is peeling like crazy. The problem is they've been recoated probably 10 times at this point. They've got a lot of time on them, and this recoating process has been tried many, many times in the past and failed. So, being that this is just a commuter car for my son, we didn't want to go and spend, $170 per headlight on OEM lenses. We went the eBay route. We got a super cheap pair of headlight lenses, if you can see these guys here. I don't even know what brand these are. They're stamped Guangqing or something on the front. They're definitely Chinese made. That's okay. They don't come with bulbs. They're bare bones. There's nothing in here except the required reflectors, all the DOT stuff, and the housing itself. We're going to swap all the bulbs over. We're going to put these things in, and this brand new set of headlight assemblies for both the passenger and driver side was only $70 with free shipping on eBay. So I don't even know where we bought these from or what eBay store we bought them from. If you go on eBay and you search up, 2004 to 2006 Camry headlights, you'll find these. I mean, they're not expensive. They're not difficult to install. The only thing is you do have to take the front bumper off the car. So with that being said, I'm going to go through the process of pulling off the front bumper on this thing and getting these headlights installed. So we're going to go ahead and pop the hood. I'm going to have a look under here. This should be a fairly straightforward process from everything that I've seen. There are a couple of 10mm fasteners behind the wheel well liner on each side. And then there are some bolts that we have to pull out of the splash shield all across the front of the bumper underneath. And then it should just pop free. At least I think it should. I don't know if this front bumper has ever been taken off before, so it might give us a little bit of a hard time. But we'll find out. Hopefully we're not going to get too scuzzy. My wife was kind enough to wash this thing for me just before she got home from the grocery store. So we're going to go ahead and try to zip this front bumper off real quick, have a look at what we got, and get these new headlights installed. So I'm going to reorient the camera. We'll start pulling the bumper off, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, as you can see, we got the hood open here. Basically, the only thing you're going to need for this whole job is a 10mm socket and ratchet and a trim removal tool. Now, as you can see here, we have a couple of 10mm bolts that hold the actual headlights in. There's one here, and I believe there's another one on the inside of the bumper over here. And then there's two 10mm bolts that hold the top of the bumper cover on. A whole series of 10mm bolts up underneath here, if you can see these. We have one here, and all across the front of the bumper to get the front of the splash shield disconnected from the actual bumper cover. Now, the one that's going to be the biggest challenge that you may not see right away is actually hidden up behind the splash guard here. You're going to need a trim removal tool to pull this plastic rivet out. You're going to need to pull this plastic splash shield back, and then there's a vertical 10mm bolt right behind here that secures the top of the bumper into the fender. So I'm going to go ahead and get the camera set up. We'll deal with this guy first, and then I'll reorient the camera again, and we'll zip out the rest of these fasteners up underneath here and pull this bumper cover right off. All right, guys, I got my little trim removal tool here. We're going to go ahead and pull this plastic rivet out. That just pops right out like so. We got to get behind here and get this plastic splash shield kind of pulled back like that. The fastener we're looking for is right here. It goes vertically up into the fender. Gotta pull that guy out, just like so. Now the process remains the same. Just need to go across all underneath the front of the bumper cover and release it from the front of the splash shield. Now again, you don't need to pull the splash shield completely off from underneath the car. It's just gonna hang down a little bit. Just wanna get it disconnected from the front of the bumper cover. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that really quick, get the other side taken care of behind that splash shield, and then we will go and pull this whole thing right off the front of the car. To get the rest of the bumper the rest of the way off, It just lifts out of the little groove that it's in here, and then you have to pull it out from behind the edges of the fender here. So you got to reach behind the splash shield, kind of pull out, and release it from a little clip that it's in. Yeah, but it's just held in by little plastic retainers. If you kind of get up in there behind there, you can see. I'll show you guys when I get the bumper off here. There we go. There's little nubs that kind of grab onto the bumper that you just need to get it slid out from. Right here, these guys. There's corresponding little nubs that stick down here that this engages on. So you just kind of have to get behind that and pop them free. As you can see, we have basically the whole passenger side off. Just have to repeat the process on the driver's side now. It is helpful if you have another pair of hands to work with you while you're doing something like this so you don't drop the bumper. But again, we don't have it lifted up. It's not even on ramps, so it can't go very far. There we go. Now there is a piece of styrofoam right behind here that just kind of sits between the bumper cover and the actual steel bumper itself. That may fall off. If it does, no big deal. But in this case, you managed to catch it. There we go. All right. So now we obviously have the front bumper taken off. Slide this back and get it out of our way. And now we can gain access to the bolts holding our headlights in. So again, there's one right here, and just like I thought, there's another one right here at the base of the headlight assembly itself. Loosen these two bolts, this whole thing should pop out. We should be able to disconnect our wiring for all of our bulbs, swap the bulbs over into the new housings, and bolt them in. So let's go ahead and get that done. There is a plastic tab holding these on. You kind of have to lift and pull. Same thing for the outside here. Can't quite see the tab, but there's a pin that sticks off the back of the headlight housing itself that goes into a plastic receptacle on the actual fender here, and I don't want to damage that, so I'm kind of being gentle with it. Again, it's plastic, it is old, and we do have to retain that because I don't think the new ones have that plastic receptacle on it. We're going to have to reuse that. I'll show you what I mean when I get this off. There we go. Alright. Let me get this headlight wiring disconnected here, and I'll show you what I mean. To get these disconnected, these are standard headlight harnesses. You just push and slide, and all the bulb connectors come right off. Turn signal bulb, marker light. Just snake it out of the housing here. And then we'll have to swap over the low beam and the high beam onto the new housings because, again, those housings don't come with new bulbs. But this is the pin that I was talking about. The steel pin is kind of an alignment pin on the corner of the housing here, and that goes into this plastic receptacle mounted to the fender. So you want to be careful. It just slides right out, but again, this is plastic, it's old, and we have to reuse this. So you want to use a little bit of care when you're yanking this out to make sure that you don't break this, because this is what aligns the corner of the headlight bulb to the rest of the vehicle, so your headlights can actually be aimed properly. So now I'm going to go ahead and swap the bulbs out and put them in the new housing, and installation is the exact reversal of the removal. So here we go. Nice little stickers covering the opening so dust and debris can't get in there during shipping, which is nice. They're not really put on there that well, so I'm not sure how much they're doing, if anything, but it's the thought that counts with the Chinese stuff, I guess, right? Alright. Start with our low beam bulb here, just like any other normal headlight bulb. That's just a twist and pull to remove, and it's just a twist to put in the new one. Slide that guy out, same thing. No issues so far. Everything seems to be fitting just fine. I'll start with our marker light here. Again, that whole housing just You got to figure out which way it wants to go in. Let's see here. Is that it? Maybe? I can't tell. There we go. Sure. We'll call that good. And then we'll route our cable the same way it was. Just goes into the little cutouts here in the headlight assembly. That's it. Just like that. There we go. That's better. Let me plug our bulbs in here. Actually, I'm going to put this turn signal bulb in first, because that's exposed. It's not in the housing. There we go. There's that. And then we just line this up with that little receptacle I was talking about. And one thing I forgot to mention, right here, this engages on this little tab at the bottom of the headlight assembly. So that's what was holding it in at that side. So you have to line up this to there, and this little pin to the receptacle. Once we do that, it should snap into place. That fit is not great. That leaves quite a bit to be desired, actually. But for the price, can we really complain that much? I don't think we can. This marker light doesn't work on either side. Alright, slight delay there. I actually decided to test these before I got the other side started, and I'm glad that I did, because I noticed that that corner marker light was out. So I pulled the bulb out, and you can tell that it's burned out because of the way that it is. It wasn't working, and the filament in the middle is gone. So I had my son run to the auto parts store and just get some 194 bulbs for it really quick. Got that fixed, got that side all bolted in. Yes, you can definitely tell that these are Chinese headlights. The fitment is terrible. The brackets don't line up very well as far as the bolt holes, but the nice thing about this particular style of headlight assembly is that, like I said when I was taking them out, you have an indexing pin here and an indexing bar here. So even though these brackets don't line up with the bolt holes very well, the headlight can only go so far. I mean, once you get it back in there, it can't really move out of position that much. And they're fully adjustable. So, I mean, the beams are fully adjustable. So, yeah, I kind of had to finagle the brackets to get it to bolt in, but we got it. And, you know, for $70 for the pair, you really can't complain that much. So, now that we got the marker light fixed on this side, I noticed that that one's out too. So I'm going to pull that out, swap the bulbs, and get everything going. And then we'll start bolting everything back together. So, making progress. Boy, oh boy, that was in there. Same process. Twist and pull. Again, burned out. 194s are easy. Just pull. Just a T10 style base. Now, a lot of you might be seeing like 194s and 168s and all these different style of bulbs that all look the same. Well, 194, 168, and I think a couple different ones besides those two, all use the T10 style base, and they'll fit in these sockets. The biggest difference between 194 and 168 is the wattage. 194 is actually a little bit dimmer than a 168. Because these are just marker lights, and they're kind of a pain in the butt to get to, I specifically asked him to get 194's lower wattage bulbs, just so they don't draw as much current, and there's less likelihood of them pretty much ever burning out again, as long as he owns this car. Because once you have the headlights installed, I mean, there's little access ports for you to get these things out, but they're not that easy to get to. In this case over here, it's kind of behind the fuse box. So swapping these out now with a 194 bulb instead of a 168 was just kind of a long life move for me. Install whatever you want. If you want super bright marker lights, put 168s in. There's not that much of a difference. These just will last a little bit longer. So that's the reason that I chose 194s, and that's the difference between 194 and 168, in case you were wondering. A lot of you probably didn't care, but that's all right. Now you know. Just as before, we'll pull our little white covers off that aren't really doing anything because they're not completely attached. Ooh. Yeah, we're going to be replacing that. That's this high beam bulb, I think. That is not looking good. But he didn't want to buy high beam bulbs, so I guess I can't say that I blame him. He already spent like $50 on low beam bulbs for this thing. You can believe that. The guy at the auto parts store suckered him into these blue tinted, super fancy Sylvania bulbs. Whatever. He's 19. He'll learn. I already told him that was a mistake because they're just going to burn out faster. That's all right. At least he's not running LEDs or something in the halogen housing and blinding everybody. Of course, it helps if the ratchet's going the right way. Okay. Let's do a test fire here. Again. There we go. Marker light, low beam, marker light. These marker lights on both sides have been burned out ever since he bought the car. High beams and directionals. Everything works. Cool. Always a good idea to check everything. Make sure your bulbs are working before you bolt all this back together. The last thing you want to do is put your bumper back on without checking all this and realize you got something either not hooked up right or you got a bulb out. I'm glad that I checked those marker lights before I did all this. We're going to go ahead and get the bumper put back on now. I might call my son back up here to help with that, just so I can get everything lined back up. And then we should be good to go. Hopefully, these headlights are where they're supposed to be. We'll know shortly. All right, let's get it bolted back together. So one thing that I didn't mention at the outset here is that this car does not have factory fog lights on it, but the wiring harnesses are right here. So if you do have a model that does have fog lights on it, you will need to disconnect these before you pull the bumper off. You probably want to do that first as soon as you get the front of the splash shield loose. That way you don't stretch these wires. So should have mentioned that first. I didn't think about it until I saw that these connectors are here for the fog lights, if you have them. So something to think about. All right. So it just kind of lifts and slides into place. Like so. Now there are little notches that you have to line up. You got it on that side. There we go. I think this sounds good. Little clips here. Okay, good. I made it into there, made it into there. Cool. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I gotta bolt it back together, but that was a lot easier than I was expecting. Now, unfortunately, these headlights are cheap, dude. So they don't, the body lines aren't perfect. There's some gaps here. There's some gaps there.
That's okay.
But, you know.
I'm not like super worried about it.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of getting the splash shield lifted back up into position and getting it bolted back in, but I can handle that. So,
Okay.
that's all I needed.
Cool.
Sweet.
Thank you.
I'll let you know when it's done.
Alright, sounds good.
Well, that was easier than I thought. All right. Now we just got to bolt everything back together. Cool. I've managed to tear my finger up and get blood everywhere. Whoops. But that's it. We're done. That's the basic process. It's really not that difficult. and it totally transforms the overall appearance of the front of the car. So, well, folks, there you have it. The basic process on how to replace the headlights on a, I believe it's 2004 to 2006 Toyota Camry. This is a 2005 model year. I could be slightly off on some of those model year ranges. I'm not a Toyota expert, but it's a little bit of an involved process because you have to drop that front bumper, but it's really not that hard. It's just a bunch of 10mm bolts and a little bit of time, and occasionally you catch your finger on something and have an oopsie. No big deal, but you take the front of the car from looking like this to like that. For $70 shipped, pretty dramatic difference. Now, they're not perfect. They don't fit that great, but they look fantastic. And for a daily driver with 202,000 miles on it, this is going to be much safer at night for my son because he was having issues seeing with these things because they're so fogged up. And on top of that, because this clear coat is peeling so bad, we're in the middle of winter right now. Every time it snows, the snow and ice don't really come off of these. It doesn't slide off like on a nice smooth surface. So he was having issues with his output on his headlights being diminished even further because of that. So this is going to be a much safer alternative. All the marker lights and all the bulbs work now. He's got everything squared away in the front end of his car. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Again, he's probably only going to have this car for another year or two before we buy something different. This is just to get him to A and B to work and back. So really, for $70, a pretty good investment. Not perfect, but it's an old car. It's 20 years old. Who cares? So that's all I got for you this time, guys. I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, be sure to leave me a comment. I'll do my best to get back to you. But in the meantime, you all have a great weekend. Be safe. Have fun. And we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.